Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know what? Go subscribe right now to be a part of this music extravaganza. It's a community that goes in depth on the best of the rock and roll era every single day. Exclusive interviews, stories behind songs, you're going to love it. Also, if you want more videos and other great benefits, click on our Patreon link. And you know, it's getting cold outside. Go get yourself a Professor of Rock hoodie below. You can do that. Now, I'm excited to bring you another episode from our series, Revelations, where featured artists go deep on their greatest songs. On this installment of Revelations, I got to tell you, I'm elated to share a story from our recent Zoom session with the metal god himself, Rob Halford, the frontman of legendary metal band Judas Priest, who just released his autobiography, Confess. It's an addicting read if there ever was one. I mean, one of the best rock bios I've ever read. You can get your copy at the link below. Now, in this episode, Rob breaks down the story behind the heavy metal classic, Breaking the Law, of course, from the metal masterpiece, British Steel. As we go into this interview with Rob, we do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Go design your own pair of custom glasses just like mine. You're going to love it. There's a Zenni link below. Here is Rob Halford with the story on Revelations.
It's a beautiful story, Adam, and it's a very important one because it also spreads deeper into all of the things that you do as a band.
Well, when your band is so iconic that it can actually be a swear word in a way. I mean, I remember Judas Priest, man. This band was so huge for us kids, us outcasts, as you would call them, because I grew up in a small town and country music and a lot of cowboys, and that was kind of the dynamic, and heavy metal and new wave were like the two fists that we had to express ourselves. And we owe a debt of gratitude, not only the bands to you, but us as the outcasts for the music that was our music.
You know, that's really important what you're saying, because again, you have to remember that your music is reaching into every single place that it can go to, whether it's, you know, in rural America, whether it's the heart of a big city, whether it's in the jungle somewhere, in the desert, Middle East. This is the power of music, and especially with metal. And I love this word that you're using, outcast, because, again, particularly as a younger person, you feel like an outcast. That's just a part of growing up. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter, you know, what your circumstances are. There's a point in your life when you're trying to figure a lot of stuff out, particularly as you're going from a kid into your early adulthood, and your music is your only friend. So you do feel like an outcast. And the great thing about that association with metal is that, again, as I've talked about endlessly, in the beginnings of the metal scene, we were an outcast. Our music was kind of an outcast under the big umbrella of rock and roll, because so many people didn't understand it. They couldn't figure it out. You know, why these people, what is it with this music? You know, it doesn't work for me. And so we were kind of marginalized for quite a while. And ironically enough, particularly in that punk and new wave era, where heavy metal was like a dirty word, you know. You weren't played on the radio, you weren't in a magazine, you were just pushed, you know, it's over. But we, the outcasts, is there a band called The Outcasts? Because there should be. You know, we stuck together, didn't we? And then we go into this beautiful conversation about the metal community.
Well, I mean, you came from a working class family just outside of Birmingham, England, and your family faced many hardships. How did those struggles forge your path and what became heavy metal and what became your voice?
I value that just because, again, as a person growing up, you carry a lot of what's happened to you in your childhood through the rest of your adult life. I have very, very vivid memories, a lot of which are in Confess, that I'm sharing with everybody for the first time in certain instances. But I'm grateful for that. You know, watching my dad go to work every day and working in the steel factories and so forth, and blue collar type of environment, and, you know, just about enough money and the wage packet to pay for the rent and the food for the week and all this kind of stuff, you know, that really, really helped you get a focus on what was real and what was vital and useful, and what was not that important. You know, you really figured out what was important to you through those early childhood years, and it's important to reflect upon.
Well, Breaking the Law, another metal staple from British Steel, and a song that just absorbs the rebellious essence of rock and roll.
Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law.
That was a song that meant so much to me growing up. In keeping with the mantra of less is more for British Steel, there isn't anything too intricate on Breaking the Law, but the special effects and the production, the recording, just masterfully create vivid imagery for the theater of the mind.
Yes. The fantasy, the illusion. Yeah. You know, smashing some beer bottles outside and hitting flight cases with a bit of guitar lead to make the sound of a whip, and shaking knives and forks in a drawer multiple times to make the sound of marching robots. It's beautiful, man. That's another proud moment that we reflect on as Priest, because it was simple, but it was groundbreaking to some extent, to take that, the sound effect imagery like a soundtrack of a movie, and put it into your material. But Breaking the Law became then, and as it still is now, God knows, look at today's world, the frustration that people have. You know, you put all the hard work in at school, at university, at college and everything, and you promised, well, not promised, but I think you put the time in, and there's a sense of deserving, because you can't get this job if you don't do this. Well, okay, well, I'll do this. And then you go out and then got no jobs. You know, there I was, completely wasted, out of work and down. You know, unemployment, what we're having right now with this horrible virus.
Totally.
It's enough to make you want to break the law. Not that we would ever condone breaking the law, but it's a euphemism for frustration. That song works particularly potently in the world right now.
Well, that track has that gripping highlight when you scream, "You don't know what it's like."
You don't know what it's like.
Yeah, you don't know what it's like. Yeah, for that 1%, you don't know what it's like, man. You have no idea. You have no idea. And I think we can safely say in Priest that we, you know, because we put the hours in, we did all the stuff that you have to do. We just got paid. We've got enough money for gas or for food? Well, we need to put the money to the gas to get to the next gig.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really, really being completely committed and dedicated to your dream necessitates sacrifice. You know, you have to make some sacrifices, and that might sound like a heavy word, but you know what I mean. You don't know what it's like.
You don't know what it's like. You don't have a clue.
Well, you were speaking for all of us, and then the police car sirens leads back into the main riff. Did you just do that in the moment, or did you mean to blast that lyric all along?
Very much in the moment, because it was a troubled time in the UK. The Thatcher years, the massive unemployment, all the unions striking, and, you know, the garbage wasn't being collected, and the steel factories closed, and the coal mining stopped, and everybody was so angry, you know, and frustrated. I mean, there wasn't a solution. Politicians weren't giving us a solution. That's what politicians are for. Mm-hmm. You're voted into office, into power, to help solve problems and make the life for the people of your country better. That's your obligation in a political sense. And you know, we weren't getting that in the UK. And so revolution. That's why people are running around in Belarus and Poland right now. Revolution. It's democracy in its truest sense. And rock and roll has always been full of democracy, whether it's got a heavy metal label or not.
So true. And then just hearing that they just shut Britain down for another 30 days, and with the unrest that's going on here in America with people who've lost their jobs and trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet. And it's interesting how these songs repeat. That it was the soundtrack in the early 80s at that time, and now it's the soundtrack again, and it was before.
And I remember the soundtrack of the 60s, you know. because this was all filtering into my mind as a young person. The stuff about here in Vietnam, for example, the music that was running along with that, whether it was Bob Dylan or The Doors, there was a message. This is the great beauty and power of music on all different strata, but particularly when there's some very unhappy people. Yeah, people react. You can't expect people to be passive. Passivity just breeds a stagnant type of environment, and that's not the way we should live.
I've had every promise broken, anger in my heart.
Widely used in pop culture too. Perhaps the most notable is Beavis and Butthead. They used to sing the song when they did something knowingly illegal. What did you think of that? Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah, I was addicted to that show. I heard he's coming back. I saw something not too long ago. It's a bit like that Spitting Image political satire show from the UK. That's just come back. And I love satire. You can only make satirical moments out of real strong, powerful incidents. So it was the same with Beavis and Butthead. So much fun. Yeah.
Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law.
And The Simpsons too. They had a great placement in a Simpsons episode of that as well.
There's only one surefire way to get fugitives out of a foreign building: blasting death metal.
Respecting the law, respecting the law. Copyright law, copyright law.
Yeah. Judas Priest on that black metal. Judas Priest on that black metal. Bart on the school board. That was very gracious of those people. They're a wonderful team.
Like I said, it just has had an impact on Generation X and now on millennials and so on and so forth, because the song continues to mean something.
Yes, and I'm sure it'll be around for a long time, because history does have a tendency, sadly enough, in certain areas to repeat itself. So we have to be ready with our music.
Breaking the law, breaking the law.
The book, it's everything you want in a rock biography. Like I said, I've read so many rock bios, and you really open the kimono, as they say, and so to speak, and you just reveal the gospel truth about what you experienced in your private and professional life. Was it scary to do that? What was your thinking? Because, 50 years Judas Priest, and you've done certain things on the stage and shared it lyrically, but it's a little different when you just say it on the page. Tell me about that.
Well, it was a couple of things that have let me be this way. One was coming out of the closet, but before that was becoming, getting on this clean and sober journey that I'm still on 36 years later. So you become fearless. You just don't, I was going to say you don't care. I do care. But you become fearless. I remember in the early days of working with Ian Gittins, I said, what do you want me to talk about? And he goes, everything, yeah. Can I talk about this? Yeah. Can I talk about that? Yeah, it's your book. You talk about whatever you want to talk about. Well, is that going too far? That's up for the readers to determine. Once you start saying, I can't say this because so-and-so will be upset. I can't say this because, this might get negative feedback. Well, then whose life is it? Whose life is it? These are your stories. You tell these stories and let everyone make of them what they will. So that was a great way to start this book with Ian. And I've got a lot of stories to tell. There's still so many that didn't get in the book for legal reasons and other reasons. But I really enjoyed the experience, and I wanted to write the book now just because I feel like I've got enough metal miles under my boots, and the possibility that there might always be that unauthorized biography, which is generally a hatchet job of this interview and that interview, and I don't like that. And some of the greatest books have come out of people's mouths, and so directly from the source. So it was that, and I've been asked so many times, like, please, publishers, do this. Can you do us a book? And I think, well, there's got to be some substance behind this request. There's got to be a reason, And the reason was that there are some people are interested. I got the figures back the other day, some of the sales figures, and I want to thank everybody that's gotten in to confess for experiencing the life and times of the metal god, which was one idea for the title, you know, and I thought, no, that's just too whatever. And I'm watching Game of Thrones, where the matriarch nun comes into Cersei and goes, confess, confess, confess. And I go, there's the title. There's the title right there. Confess. And I confessed.
Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law.
Thank you so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Rob Halford and Judas Priest and this song. What are your memories? What do you remember about the first time you heard Priest? Make sure to pick up a copy of Rob Halford's bio, Confess, at the link below in our description. You're going to love it. Now, to get more of this interview and many others, click on our Patreon link below. If this content resonates with you, join our community by subscribing below. Help us keep the music alive, and go pick up one of these sweatshirts to keep you warm during the winter here. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.